clean geometry checklist. If you find something that happens a lot, let me know and we'll see about adding it. So these are the common things that go wrong. As you see, I've formatted the document where you can just print one out for every model and just check through it. That's the point. It's because it is complex. I have most of it memorized at this point. So, okay. The surface direction must result in the proper surface facing when rendering. All right, what that's referring to is if I select, let's say, some faces here, doesn't matter, Steve, anyway, there we go. And then if I go to the normals and reverse, okay, so as you see, it is, I've reversed it. All right, now it's easy to see at the moment because my machine is set automatically for it to be single-sided. Okay, and yeah, so there. So if double-sided is on, it's going to look like that. Okay, so this is your primary surface normal. That's on the secondary surface normal. By default, going into Unity, you're only single-sided because most of the time you only see one side of something. Okay, so that's that guy. Triangular surfaces are to be avoided when possible. You want nice, clean polyflows, so it's just more readable than a mess of triangles. So that's more readability. All right. Follow the naming convention. Okay. And I try to push the unique item towards the front of the name because they often get truncated. The first day at your job, find out the company's naming convention and stick to it. When I got to American Animation Studios, they had been working for 9 months with no naming convention. 9 months of filling up hard drives with no order. Anyhow, don't be like that. All pivots in a logical place. Tim says they've just come up in the last week with a script that just goes through and centers them all. All right, so logical place. For this cup, that would be a logical place, or maybe there. All right?
On most humanoid models, it would be like at the feet, right?
It's at the feet, and later we'll see the soldier rig my students did. The lead modeler built it at like -100. I get the file, I rig it there because I think there's a reason for it that I don't know about. So, yes. Lovely.
Underground soldier.
Yeah. Yeah. Right, so what was I looking for next? Oh, right. Let me go and open up that kitchen file. Okay. So something like the floor and the walls here, I have those just at the center of the Cartesian coordinates. The stool here, I have it at the center on the floor. That made sense. This guy, I have it at the lower right. If I look at the stove, all right, he's centered. So the lower right is another good place to put it. All right. Notice the items face forward in Z. Build everything in games facing forward in Z. Once again, at American Animation Studios, they built the sets all facing one way, and they built the characters facing the other way. And the comedy ensued. All right. This is, yep. Oh, good question at the right time. All right. So there's several ways to do it. All right. So one thing that you can do is under Modify, Center Pivot. Love that. Okay, because the first software I learned didn't have that. Okay, chunk. And so that puts in the center of the bounding box. And then I could hold down D, and then I could snap it to the grid on the floor by holding down X. Or if I wanted to put it to that front right corner, D and V, and I'd snap it to that front right corner. And all right, D has been stuffed. Okay, so I had to hit D a couple times. In component mode, it's this guy here, I believe. Yeah. No, okay, it's not that. Let's turn off those guys. Yeah, sure enough, there it is. Okay, so you can do it in component mode with this guy, and as you see, when you mouse over it, it gives you the drop-down reminder. Okay. But yeah, build things in Z. The big dangerous one, okay, that I always try to say in a loud booming voice is no colons in the names, okay? All right. And no duplicate names. But the colons, they creep in the import settings, which you should not use. More on that in a moment. If we hit use namespaces, all right, it will bring in the item and put a colon in front of it. This has had problems with the FBX exporter. I was using the classroom computer down at Animation Workshop, and I didn't check that. And when I handed out to the files to the kids, all the blend shapes had the same name. This, all right, where you need to really worry about this and what you should use is the reference editor, and bring things in using the reference editor, and it's the same issue here. So you turn namespaces to off. The reason why I'm saying this is dangerous is the modify, search and replace names does not see the colons. Okay? So if you do find colons in your file, what you have to do is, if you have it saved out as a Maya ASCII, you open it up in a text editor and you search and replace it in a text editor. I know. This is why I'm trying to warn you against this. If you are in a binary, do not use the binaries A. Try to save it as an ASCII. If otherwise, if you can't resave it as a ASCII, you're sort of toast, because the file's all ones and zeros. Yeah. So just be aware of that one. Okay, but that's why we have it on the list. No duplicate names. So the duplicate names can cause problems. So if I have this guy is kitchen stool, and then I have the shape node as that, it'll let me, okay. It's not letting me do it, luckily. Nope, actually, there we go. Now those both have the same name. That is will cause you problems. Shape. But when you get into trouble, send me an email, send me the file, and I do think it is my job to clean up broken files. It's not fun. Okay, so there's that. All items grouped, and you don't want to have the geometry parented to geometry. All right, so you want to be using groups. So if we look at our friend, the hypergraph, okay, and there we go. All right, so you want to have, so this is going to be probably the kitchen light frame group. What we don't want to have is the geometry, like this piece of geometry under that piece of geometry, like that. It causes problems with texturing and other things. So use the groups, have a logical place for the pivot point on the group. So that's that guy. All layers named. Okay, so we pop over here. As you see, I got my layers named, and I tag my layers with a DL for display layer. Okay, so you want to come up with a naming convention, and so now as I'm working, if I'm going to need a layer for, let's say, 10 minutes, maybe I won't label that. That'll just be a garbage layer as I'm working. Okay. Oh, this is a, all right, this is a,
When you click it, it's like you can see it and untick it.
yeah, you can turn the visibility off. So,
What do you mean with display layer?
okay.
In that sense, when you're naming convention.
What is the function of a display layer?
Well, as you see, I've just turned the display of a whole bunch of layers off. So those items have disappeared, and I can focus on working on this item or something. Okay. You can also, in the layer, I can set it to template, which shows me a wireframe, or I can set it to reference, which will show me the texture, and I can snap to it, but I can't select it directly. Okay, so that speeds up my workflow. Here I have the animation layers, and so you can set up different layers of animation. This can be used for, you try out, let's say, 2 bits of animation, and you want to show them both to your animation supervisor, and you could toggle back and forth between the two, or layering animations, it can be for that. There used to be one in here for render layers. So that's a RL. That's moved over into this part of Arnold. I tried to avoid learning Arnold, but it seems it is necessary. So yeah, so the display layers, it's just there to just use it to help you sort, turn things off and on, so you can just focus your attention on what you're working on. Sort of like you use the layer masks, and if you turn everything off and you're working on lighting, and you turn it so you can only select lights, and that way you're not wasting time clicking the wrong thing, and you can focus on your task. Did that answer the question?
Yeah.
Okay. Sure. You guys have to tap into me more, all right? It's not bugging me. The joy of the job is helping you, all right? the best part of my day is when someone walks into my office and I get to say, how can I help? Okay, make sure you have no unused layers. Your basic philosophy, I want you to beat into you guys, is don't take anything into the game engine you're not going to use in the game engine. That's clutter and will just cause problems. Okay, so all shaders and shading groups named. All right, so that's just a matter of keeping yourself organized. If we pop over to here, all right, so here is, for the lighting, which we'll hopefully get to next time, or can maybe bump a little bit. All right, so I've labeled this M for material, just the base material node. Temp, it's not final. And then I've labeled the shading group node, okay? So the shading group node is where Maya attaches the lights to the camera to the material node, and when you export as an OBJ file, you'll get a MTL file, and the MTL file will only list this name, not that name. So if you don't do it, you're going to, you'll have Blend 43, and that's not helping. It's also there. This is what you see in the light linker. Okay, more on that later today or next time. And okay, so we already talked about all models must face Z, all null nodes deleted. So as you're working, maybe you, oops, all right, turn everybody back on. Okay, and all objects on. Okay, so let's say I duplicate this and okay, there's this guy's where's a good example? Where's this guy's? Okay, so I'll grab this light. Let's say I want to move him to the other side. I have a duplicate on the exact opposite wall. If I group it to itself, ooh, I'm not at this. Why is that way over there? All right, that's a surprise. This file is ripped from a bigger file from my VR house walkthrough. All right, so D, X, and all right, so we'll put that there. And then I do a -1, and so I get it, and so that tosses it over there. And then I want to get rid of those two groups. So, maybe I maybe then have those two guys and I group them together. I'll have a couple of empty groups hanging out. Okay. Come on. Can I have a hypergraph, please? Thank you. All right. And so as you see, I have these two empty groups there. So you just want to make sure that's out of there. One way to get rid of those automatically is the optimized scene size. Okay. And so that will clear out a lot of things. But if I hit apply, as you see, all right, it's not undoable. That's not always true. Sometimes it will actually undo it, despite the warning there. Okay, so that's that guy. Appropriate poly count. All right, so, and that's something you got to figure out, is this item worth that many triangles? Having had a student come into my office with a couch with 70,000 triangles on it, and it was going to be 10 pixels high. All right.
It's a really nice couch, okay?
Thank you. Another thing to point out is in games, we are obsessed with having in the game engine just enough, right? Because we have to, the computer has to display the model, it has to render it, do the ambient occlusion, do the lighting and all that at 60 frames a second. And so, be careful working with any of the guys in the CG art program. They don't have to worry about that because they can sit and do 5 minutes a frame. All right, so we UV differently than them, we light differently, and we model differently, and we rig differently. Okay, so yes. The shocking thing is on this project, I thought I had these banisters with these nice little cutouts because that's part of the arts and crafts movement thing. And so I have that all on the banisters. I was like, I bet I'm going to have to pull those out. But it rendered on the headset fine. So I did trim this guy down. So this guy had lots of little pilasters on him. And so just to make this a little lighter, I trimmed that down. So, but don't be wasteful, and, but if you need them at this point, use them. But don't be sloppy. It just makes your life better. Makes everything better. Okay. No coincidence faces in the poly set. All right. And so, in prepping this file, these little guys down here, they were duped on top of each other, and I had to pull off the second copy. So for some reason, those got duped at some point. One thing that I see students doing all the time is you have your model like this. You say, oh, I want to extrude something, and you go and you hit the extrude button. It has now duplicated the entire model. Then the student will select a component and then start, come on.
You have to extrude again, don't you?
And they'll select the surface that they had initially wanted to extrude, and not realize that they have a full duplicate of the model in there. When that happens, bring me the file and I'll fix it for you, okay? Or just call me over and I will fix it for you. I will take over your chair because it will take a while and my knees can't crouch for that long. So, all right. So coincidence faces is just a duplicate face on top of another. All right. Extremely long triangles. Where was that one? Coincidence face. Oh, no gaps.
15, yeah.
Yeah, 15. No gaps in the geometry, and does not contain border edges. All right, so let's grab another one of these stools here, and if I select this guy here, and I do my extrude, and then I do a second extrude, and bring that up, I get a micro face. Okay, so there's a micro face there. All right, let's expand that up a little bit. Okay, so I have that micro face. if I select it, if I select the micro faces and delete them, and select that, I will have put a hole there. That's obviously bad. The proper way to get rid of, all right, the way to check for those edges, all right, a border edge, is in display, polygon display, and border edges, somewhere here. Down, down. Yeah, there we go. So the border edges. And that will show with the darker line a border edge and help you identify it. To solve this guy, I'm going to have to go back to objects mode. And so mesh, cleanup, and now I mainly want you to use select matching polygons so you see the problem and you with your brain fixes the problem and the computer doesn't. This is one of the few times it's best to just ask the computer to find those guys. So, all right, and so that will call those guys out for us. All right, but this is why I want you to work with face centers, because if you have the whole face selection, you're not going to spot those problems. All right, you're not going to spot those micro faces until you're trying to UV, and then it's like, well, what's this doing? I don't understand it. You know, so all right. So avoid long triangles. So that's just really super spiky triangles, needle-like triangles. You know, like that guy, you know, that's okay, but it's really just the extreme. Yep. N-gons, hopefully you guys know what N-gons are by now. Yeah, so that's anything over 5 is strictly verboten. Okay. Sorry, at 5 and above is verboten.
Inclusive.
Right. 4 is okay. Right. Bow tie faces. This you can have happen when you do a merge. You've seen, don't save. If I do a quick poly face here, and I target weld, and I target, let's see, let's delete out these guys, and then I do a target weld here. All right, and then you see how that is one poly, and that's very dangerous. Okay, and you might have that happen when you're using the merge here. So that can cause your problems with that. All right. And if I just do a quick mesh and extract and face. Okay. So you want to avoid floating faces. That one, I don't know if we need to be that strict on that one. All right. Okay. Smoothing errors. Smoothing errors, that's just, let's just get the one of the files up again. Include, okay, chunk. Yeah. So the smoothing errors is just your soften and harden edges. So like this guy here, I have him as a hard edge. maybe he should be a soft edge, and like these guys probably should be soft edges. Um, yeah, so it's just making sure that you have those the way you need them. So toss that guy to a soft edge too. And that will just save you a lot of triangles. And I believe in the game exporter, yeah, so you have your split vertex normals there. Okay. All right, let me get that on my list. Okay. Right up. Kill that. Concave faces. So you want the polys to be flat. If you have something where you see how the computer's deciding it to go that way instead of that way. So if this was how my model is going to be, I would triangulate that. And I would decide, hey, divide it that way because that's the surface I want. Okay? Don't leave that to the computer. And of course, it's causing me problems. All right. This is not what I had planned for today exactly, but I think this is important. Okay, so you make that decision. Okay, because you want the light to roll across that surface and reveal the form. Self-penetrating geometry, you don't want to just have, common thing on the cup here is Z, 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 Z. Okay, whatever. Be right with you. Okay. If I was to use the cylinder to build the handle, I wouldn't want to just stick that in there and have these faces there that you're never going to see. But the computer is going to have to take a millisecond to throw them away. Yes?
For the non-planar box, how do you flatten?
That is often a toughie. I mean, if it's a little bit out, I think we can get away with that. But really the way to planarize them is to grab the scale tool and scale it flat.
You can use the right or left key, so you don't have to control.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. Remember, we're all in this together against the clients. And I should be, hopefully this still works, I should be able to snap them to the grid in one axis. Okay? You may have to go in and switch from object over to the normal. Okay? If you're going it at an angle, it can be very difficult. I don't worry about that one too much. Okay, so a big one is the freeze transformation. So the freeze transformation, Michael, one of my teaching assistants, he got to, I think it was Poland or Russia, and he's like, Steve, they don't know freeze transformation. So, you want to put your pivot point where you need it. And as you see, this guy's gotten bumped to, he's at -y. And if I hit freeze transformation, that just sets that to 0. And so ideally, if we go back to that, the kitchen here, ideally I should just be able to get everything back to where it should be by zeroing it out. And as you see, everyone's at their 0 point. This becomes super important with the rigging, because you want your animator to animate for a while and then look at his work and say, that's not good enough, and go zero the rig and start over. Okay, so that's freeze transformations. UV layout in as efficiently as possible. And yeah, so why bring texture into the game engine if you're not going to use it? Okay, why bring pixels in if you're going to then throw them away? All right, yeah. If I grab this wall unit and we look at its UVs, there are various correct ways to lay out your UVs. So this guy, most of the whole house had oak paneling and oak cabinets and all that. So my texture, I had thin wood over here, medium thickness wood there, thick wood there, and the upper corner was the end wood. And so I brought in one texture and I used it on 30, 40 different items. But because the UVs were swapped around and stuff, you don't notice it. All right, because we want to limit our texture calls in games. If you're doing a commercial client, if you're doing a commercial or something, you don't have to worry about that. But there's multiple, so you just need to be as efficient as possible and think about it and have a strategy. Texture size appropriate for the model. Do not have, the cabinet handle there with a 4K map.
But you need the rust spots, come on.
Yeah, so now I would recommend building your textures a little bit bigger than you think you're going to need, because you can always run an action in Photoshop and chop them down. And there's also some settings in Unity that can deal with it. Okay. Textures to conform to the game engine. So, all joints labeled, no accidental animation. All right, so I'm going to grab the stool here and accidentally put some animation on it. Click off. Oh, I can't see that. It's, blah, blah, blah. I go to my hypergraph hierarchy. He says optimistically, can I please have a hierarchy? That's not a hierarchy. Really? All right, there we go. This is not exactly what I'd planned for today, but it is valuable. Windows, animation. Come on, give me a hierarchy. There we go. And I zoom out. And I zoom out. And I pan through. And there we go. This guy here has animation on him. Okay? So, and I can tell that because it's a parallelogram. So that's how you spot that one. And sometime on Saturday, I spotted, I had a polygon name in there, and I just killed it. I went out of Unity, back into Maya, fixed it, re-imported it into Unity. Okay, and we're almost done with this. So that's okay. New one, okay? And this pops up when you try to import into Mudbox, and that is less than 16 edges terminating in one vertex. All right, so Mudbox has a problem with, if we go to here, if I have over 16 in there, if I put that to like 20, Mudbox is going to kick up an error message on that guy. All right, so what I would usually do is subdivide the caps, chunk, is I would, merge it down, somewhere about here, or at one of these rings. I just target welded it so that that inner batch wasn't so I just merge it. Probably not like that because I'm probably selecting something on the back side. All right, let's 4. Okay. Yeah, so I'd merge that guy like that and then like that until I only had the the 16 going into that guy. Righto. And then I keep at number 30, all history deleted. Okay, so, I popped in and fixed some UVs and, and so that will list into the history. And so you just want to make sure you do your edit, delete by type history, or if it's on a rig, all right, you do non-deformer history. So that will keep the skin rig, but will clean up your model. And we'll talk more about that in a future week and some of those workflows and problems. And that's the clean geometry checklist. Once again, if you find something that's a problem every time, let me know and we'll just add it to the list. Okay, so, and